Hey guys, just wanted to make a video for CSS for beginners because on my Instagram I see there's a lot of people that are either just getting into web design or web development, and they have a lot of questions on CSS. I think HTML for the most part is pretty straightforward. You have div tags and stuff like that. Sorry, but CSS, it sometimes throws people through a loop. In fact, some of the real smart developers out there, even software developers who are working in Java and C Sharp and all that, even sometimes just centering something for them is difficult. So I wanted to do this in a two-part series. In the beginning, for the first video, I wanted to go through the real basics, not specifically design oriented. This is not going to be like a super heavy design focused thing, but rather practicality and techniques of CSS. And then the second one will be more along the lines of creating like a template website with a nav bar, a background image that's 100% of the screen, and then centered text with call to action. I forget what that's called. The name of that is escaping me right now, but it pretty standard for a lot of websites these days. Anyway, so for this episode, part one, we're going to go and do real super basic stuff for CSS just to get you, because rather than saying, oh, type in font size this or whatever, rather than saying that, what I'm going to do is give you concepts and foundations so that you can build on that and then do it yourself. Because if you know how to work with CSS, you can go to W3, whatever the heck that, here, let's look at what that website is. W3 Schools. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. And then you go to CSS, and you can go and see all the ways that the different attributes that you can select for CSS. Boy, my computer's running super slow now. Sorry about that. Okay. So anyway, so let's get started rather than me rambling on. So here I have a basic index.html, which you have to name index.html or index.php, but that's different, so that the browser knows to load this automatically. If it was named something else like main.html, it wouldn't load that. It would look for index.html. So I just have, I just put the title, and then this I can delete. So what I'm going to do is, we haven't done any CSS yet. I'm just going to set up, let me give a couple spaces so you can see. I'm going to set up, oh, by the way, I'm using Atom Text Editor, and I'm running it on the packages, the Atom Live Server, and it just runs it in the, let me close that. It just runs it in the thing. See how I had, well, I don't have it there anymore. See, if I delete that and then save, and then come here and it deletes it, it's empty. So it just simulates a server, even though it's not really. It's just simulating it so that you can practice, which is a nice thing to have. So here we're going to do a div, and with Atom Live Server and snippets, you can just type in div and it'll put that in there. So now the two important things, at least in 2020 for CSS, is that you have to know that there is an ID that you can assign and a class that you can assign. Okay, an ID is a lot of times it's used for JavaScript to reference because it's a little bit easier, but in CSS, basically an ID, if you name this, we'll just name this area 1. It's kind of stupid, but whatever. And then you name this, let's see, test class 1. You have to know that whatever you, in CSS, whatever you type for ID as area 1, that CSS is going to win out over the class. So let's say you said that the text in here is going to be red in area 1, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. And then in the class you said that the text was going to be blue. The text is actually going to be red because ID sort of outweighs the class. Okay. Some of the differences between ID and class. ID is meant, basically the way it's used is ID is meant to apply to a single area. Like just this div can only be area 1. Okay. Whereas class, you can have another div with the class test class 1, right? And then the same attributes will apply to both of these. Okay. But you can't do two IDs. It just doesn't work that way. You won't get the CSS in this second div if you use two IDs. Okay, so let's do something. I'm gonna go to lorem. Lorem. Am I spelling that right? Lorem ipsum generator. Okay, we're just going to generate some random text. Let's see. I guess one paragraph is good enough for now. Don't need too much. Excuse me. So just so we can have some text. Copy. Close that. We don't need that anymore. So in here we're going to do a p tag, a paragraph tag. We're going to add our paragraph. I'm also going to do a we'll say h3 as soon as my freaking laptop catches up, and we'll say div 1. How exciting. Okay, and then in here we'll do that same paragraph situation, and we'll just say another h3. We'll say div 2, getting more exciting. Okay, so let's go with that for now. I think that's all we need to do. Oh, and I also have Prettier installed for Atom. That's a really nice thing. And see how when I saved it, it formatted it. That's a really nice thing to have. So, I'm not even going to bother explaining this, where you could put CSS directly in the file, because that's a waste of time, because it's not something that's acceptable. So what we're going to do in Atom text editor, I'm going to type link, and it already kind of fills it in for you. I just typed in link, and then it assumes you're going to have a folder called CSS, which we'll make in a second, and then you have your master CSS. So what I'm going to do is come over here, new folder. We'll say CSS files, because you might have more than one. And then in that folder, we're going to do new file, and we'll call it master.css. Okay, so here's our new master CSS. So whatever we type in here is going to automatically come into here because we have this link, and that is the proper way to do it, at least for basic CSS level. There's other ways, but whatever.
Mom,
delete that.
Daddy,
Yes.
have you seen Mommy's phone?
No, I haven't. It's out there. Shut the door. Shut the door. So let's see. So we have this. So let me just save all this. I'll show you what it looks like. See how we got nothing here. Obviously, it's just HTML5, which is what we're using, which is standard for now. It applies a little bit of, like you put an H1 and it gives you that size. It also gives a little bit of natural padding, meaning this little bit of space here on the edge. Actually, let me make that the first thing I show you. So, when you use things like Bootstrap and even HTML5, sometimes you want the padding reset absolute to 0 so that you can then go in and add your own. So what we do for that is we do an asterisk, and then we open our brackets. This is CSS now, we're going to say our margin is 0, which is margin is the space between objects. Padding is the space inside of objects that are inside of a box. Okay, so I think that's what it is. So let me just double check. Yeah, see how we got nothing now? So we reset it back to 0. So let's try to, let's see here. You know what? As soon as my computer catches up. So here we have this test. You know what? Let's do section. Let's call this section here. This div. We're going to rename this class section, and we're going to change this down here to section. Okay. And we're going to give this one. We're going to say section 2. I know that might seem a little weird. So this div here now has 2 different classes. This one only has 1. Okay, so I'm going to show you real quick. So here's how we select a CSS class. We do dot and then the name of the class. That's it. Okay, so we can say we'll say margin what should we say? We'll say margin auto. It doesn't matter. Padding, for padding, again, I'm not getting into specifics of what everything does. You can look that up for the documentation. It's more about, what's here and how to select things, because sometimes that's the hardest thing, is figuring out how to get that. So let's do padding, and we'll say for the top and bottom, we'll say 10 pixels, and the left and right will say 30 pixels. Okay, so let's save that and see what that gives us. Okay. Alright, so now we have some padding. See? So our margin is auto, which means it puts it in the center. And then our padding gives us 10 pixels on the top and bottom, and then 30 on the side. Just to show you what I mean, if we change this to 130, save all again, see, it just gives us more area in the center, which is nice. I might keep it like that. Alright, so now we have section. So notice how this div here has the class section. This div has also the class section. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get at that section 2. Okay, and this is how you apply other CSS attributes. Now you can't apply the same, because that's kind of redundant. That makes no sense. Like, I wouldn't apply margin down here, although you could, but it doesn't make sense. You might as well just add it up here. That's the whole point of it. But let's say we wanted to change the background color to this. It's like a dark gray, and we'll change the color of the text to white. Yeah, I think that's good for now. Okay, we'll save all and I'll show you what we get. So see how this, now the padding and the margin is still the same for both, but now this div 2, or this section 2 rather, has those different effects changed. So that's how you do that. So now, for example, real quick, I'll show you. If you go back here, and let's just say we took this div, copied it, put it down here, we made another one, we took out this section 2 rather, and we said div 3, super more exciting, and we saved, save all, and we refresh. It's refreshing. No, wait, where is it? Did I save it? That's it. Huh. the heck's going on? Interesting. I don't know why that's. Unless sometimes. Oh, there we go. Okay, sometimes CSS takes a little bit of time to catch up. One mistake I used to make is that like I would make a bunch of changes, because if you make a bunch of changes in CSS real quick, sometimes your browser doesn't catch up, and maybe it takes like a few seconds for it to catch up, or you might even have to clear your browser history in your cache, and then it will show up. So don't just change a bunch of stuff, think it didn't work, and then change a bunch of other stuff to rework it. And then when all along it was just your browser not able to catch up. So just a little tip there. So if you know it should be right, or you're fairly certain it should be right, try clearing your cache, or just waiting 30 seconds to a minute, or even 2 minutes sometimes, and it'll usually correct itself. So let's see. Let's put another div. Copy. Oops, I'm sorry. Copied the wrong one. Let's copy this div. We'll put this. Let's put it down at the bottom. This div is going to be. It's not going to have a class. Actually, let me delete this here. Whoops. Okay, so when we want to target an ID, usually we put them at the top. IDs go at the top. We do hashtag or pound sign, and then area 1, right? And then we could say whatever. We could just copy. Okay, my laptop is going really slow. Gotta wait for it to catch up sometimes. Okay, maybe it's just easier if we type it. Okay, so background color, we'll say that same grayish color. Color F. Okay, so that's pound sign or hashtag, and then the name of the ID, and that's how you target that. And there we are. See, it doesn't have the margin and all that. It's not important. It just has whatever's in here. That's the only thing it can have. Oh, and by the way, this asterisk, I should have mentioned this earlier. This applies to everything in the page. Now, something that's kind of interesting, you can take the body tag and apply things to that. So you could say body and that. So when you're doing CSS for specific things, for specific HTML tags, you just type out the tag. There's no dot or pound sign. And then you can say, I don't know, font size, I don't know, 30 pixels or something. Again, we're not trying to make this pretty. I'm just trying to show you concepts. So see, now it changed everything inside the body, right? Also, one other cool thing you can do with this HTML, I forget what the heck it is, the scroll behavior, and then you do smooth. Well, let's see, let's just put a button here. Button. We don't need a type. We don't need a name. Oh, here's another thing that IDs are also good for. We're going to do, oh, wait a second. I'm sorry, not a button, sorry. An anchor tag with a hyperreference. See how there's a little hashtag in there? We're going to type area 1. We're going to say click here, okay? And let me show you. And by the way, this is referencing this HTML. So we're going to reference everything inside of the HTML, so that anything in the HTML is affected. So we're going to say here, click here, and the smooth scrolling just does that. Rather than jump right to it, it smooth scrolls down rather than, jumping down to it. It's, little something. Alright, so now let us do something else. Alright, now here, so we have, let's see. Okay, so we have in here, oh, I'm sorry, not inside the paragraph tag. Just bear with me a second. So what we're going to do, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. So anchor tag, hyperreference. So we're going to put a few tags in here, right? We're going to say link 1, A, I'm going to say link 2, A hyperreference, link 3. Okay? So what we want to do is target the anchor tags inside of section 2. So we're going to come over here. I'm pretty sure this should work. So we're going to type dot section 2, okay? And then we're going to do A for anchor tag. And then we're going to say color, we'll say, I don't know, purple. And we're going to say text decoration none, which is going to get rid of the underline thing. Let's see if that worked for us. And let me just make sure. Okay, we put those links in section 2. Alright. Let's see if that gives us, yes. Alright, see how they're purple? Good. Now, nothing changes when you hover over them, which we want. And again, I'm just showing you how to select different things. So we're going to do dot section 2 A, and then use the hover extension, and we'll say color goes to we'll say white, and we'll leave the text decoration so the underline comes back when you hover over it. So there, and then they change to white, whatever. So okay, I think I'm going to end it there. So I gave you sort of a basis. Anything else is going to be kind of redundant. Like if I showed you how to target lists and how to change that. The part that was always confusing to me was how to get things, right? Let me do, you know what? Let me do one more. Trying to think how to do that. Think how to do that. Oh, okay, so notice how when I did dot section 2 anchor tag, it only affected, no, never mind. Let me see. Alright, let's change this to comma A here, and then comma A hover. I think that's how you do it. Here. Now see, that changes white. So that's how you select multiple things. Okay? You use a comma. You do the class and then what you want to target in there. Like say for example, let's say we want to do dot section 2, the H3. Okay, let's say we want to make color, I don't know, red. Let's say red, it doesn't really matter. Save all. Okay, then it's going to make the section 2 H3 red. Now, one last thing, if you wanted to also make the other section, just the plain section H3 red, you would add it like that with a comma. See, but you still have to specify the class, right? And then it makes all the H3s red, except for that one, because we're not targeting that. If you wanted to make this red, you would simply add a comma, and then do that, and then you would do, what did I name that, area 1, like that. Save all. And now it's, well, it's just, did I put all those in H3? Oh, no, but I didn't specify. That's right. So you would have to do H3. Sorry. Forgetting my own lesson here. Yeah, see. So that's how to target stuff in CSS, which I think is the most important thing. This stuff, the individual, the actual CSS, I mean, you need, but the thing for me was finding how to select what I wanted to apply these attributes to. So, I hope that clears some things up for you. Like I said, in my next video, I'm going to be doing a sort of standard. I forget what the heck the name of that is. Anyway, I'll figure it out by the next video. So a standard sort of uh, CSS outline of an entire website. Basically, it'll be basic, but it'll be a image background that takes up the entire background of the website, and then we'll do a nav bar real quick. We might even add in some font awesome stuff because I like that. Alright, so yeah, and we'll create a footer, of course, and the header with the image that fills up the entire screen, and then you will have some text in the middle of it. You'll see it. Anyway, so do me a favor and subscribe so that, and also turn on the notification bell so that you can get notified when I put that up, because it won't be tomorrow or the next day, but maybe a few days from now. So yeah, subscribe, which I would very much appreciate, and turn on the notification bell, which is right down there somewhere. And also, if you thought that this was informative and sort of gave you a little bit clearer of a, I'm not going to answer all your questions, but hopefully it just gives you just a little bit of a different insight so that you can see the difference. Because some web developers might explain something one way, other web developers might explain it another way, and I think that the more people you learn from, the better grasp you can get on things. So hopefully that helps. Whee! That was fun. Okay, and any other questions or comments or whatever, of course, leave them below. Alright, and alright, that's it. Thanks. Like and subscribe. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. Bye.